Welcome, guys. We've had the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix, and what a race we had just there. It was absolutely brilliant. We have a new race winner, a new team at the top. Let's get to it. Welcome, guys. Lewis Hamilton gets his first win at Ferrari. We're jumping straight to it because what a weekend it has been for him. Just missed out on pole position, and for all the world it looked like it was going to be the Mercedes that run away with it, but Lewis and Ferrari, they get the strategy right. They got the call bang on, and Lewis drove absolutely inch perfect for his first win in red in a full Grand Prix, and obviously he's got the win in the Chinese sprint. But he's done it, and he eats out a huge 25-point chunk out of Kimi Antonelli's championship lead, because there's a couple of things to talk about in this Spanish Grand Prix review. The first is clearly Lewis Hamilton with a brilliant drive, a brilliant weekend, 2 second-place podiums, and then he's one-upped it for a victory, a V for victory to all his haters. Absolutely phenomenal drive. But aside from that, we've got to talk Mercedes and Kimi Antonelli, and what a disaster it turned out for Kimi Antonelli. A brilliant drive from him. He was in behind George Russell. He hunted him down. He was there or thereabouts. Closed on Lewis Hamilton, then got George Russell at the end of the first stint, was really on his gearbox, threatening him, hunting him, hounding him around the Barcelona circuit. George Russell got the preferential strategy call. He was the car ahead at that time, but then the car breaks down, and heartbreak for the young Italian rookie. Swings and roundabouts. George Russell fans will say, yes, this is, his comeuppance, this is going to happen. This is what's happened to George Russell. The real problem here that we're missing is what a huge problem Mercedes have in their engine. We've seen a huge amount of reliability problems, not just for their engines. We've seen it with the McLarens. We've seen it with George Russell. We've seen it with Kimi Antonelli. And with the best car on the grid, could they lose this championship purely down to reliability? That is one thing that we've seen throughout the test sessions pre-season, and it's showing its face within the main races. And it's they'll be very thankful and thanking their lucky stars, Mercedes, that they've got this extra token from the FIA to try and improve their engine. It's clearly they need to look in the face of reliability of the problem, because they can't do this like this. Whoever it is, whether it's George Russell or Kimi Antonelli, they can't afford their engines to blow up. And this time they didn't give victory away. Lewis drove brilliantly and won a fantastic race, but they killed each other, and they're killing themselves, aren't they, ultimately, Mercedes, with these engine problems. Let's get to the race. Well, for me, I was just looking at the way it had to pan out for Lewis and for us fans, really. Lewis had to be into turn 1 first. Looking at his tyre deg from Monaco, he was really struggling on the mediums. He was the first to pit. He absolutely tear through them in Monaco. Tyre deg was high here in Spain, so I just thought, putting 2 and 2 together in the race, it was really Lewis needed to get and hold sort of everybody up. They went brave with the soft tyre strategy. That really threw something in the mix for the Mercedes. They then had to compromise their strategies in effect to cover off Lewis. But they were then on a compromised 2-stop strategy, where Ferrari were clinical with a 3-stop strategy. And that's what won it. And, well, credit for finally where credit's due. I mean, we can call them clowns, the second-rate strategy team, but hats off to them this weekend, because that was a brilliant call. Very decisive from the get-go. They knew what the plan was. It worked. The team radio with Lewis and his engineer was very, very good, very clear of exactly what they wanted from start to finish. Push, this is, 7 laps now. This is your race, Lewis. And for once, Lewis had the car underneath him that he could absolutely deliver that performance. Team, driver, engineer were absolutely flawless. They pulled the strategy. They got Mercedes doubting. George sort of questioning the strategy throughout when he pit straight after Lewis Hamilton, saying, "Are we on a 3-stop now? What are we doing? Are we just covering?" But they were still confident in their 2-stop strategy. They stuck with their 2-stop, but luckily for Lewis Hamilton, some might say we got the VSC. We won't fully know how the race would have played out had it been a straight 3-stop, 2-stop battle. But with Lewis's pace at the end, he was absolutely flying. He would have had a fresher set of tyres, and he would have hunted them down. Overtaking was possible. We've seen that with Mercedes on Mercedes battle with Kimi and Russell. So the gap that he had at the end, the 20-second lead, I think Lewis would have had it in the bag despite a virtual safety car, which was Fernando Alonso going out on his home Grand Prix in front of his home stand. So a bit of a kick for the Aston Martin. I don't want to kick them even more when they're down. I kind of feel like I'm doing that far too often for Aston Martin. They've built a dog of a car. They were poor around here, as were the Williams, in fact. So a number of teams showing that actually they've got a huge amount of work to do. They were sometimes 3.5 seconds a lap slower than the guys in front of them, and that was the big difference that we've seen here this weekend, and throughout from Friday practice qualifying, is the huge gap now that we're seeing from first all the way through to last. There's huge gaps developing now, and so teams need to bring upgrades and they need to work. Ferrari can be also happy. It's so much positive on their side at the moment, isn't it? It's another race victory, another upgrades that have come, and they've actually worked on this car. So a brilliant drive from Lewis Hamilton, a fantastic first victory. Now, where he was 66 points behind, he's now 41 points behind Kimi Antonelli in this fight for the championship. A huge 4 races now to go in the European quest. It fell apart for Kimi Antonelli last time out. It started with a horrible DNF on the team side, and we'll get to Kimi and Mercedes now, which is the other key part of this race. Really, is they've shot themselves, haven't they? The strategy. Kimi Antonelli drove a quite phenomenal race. He was flawless. He was right on George Russell. A brilliant second place, and then the absolute kick in the stomach. I was absolutely gutted for him when his car broke down just half a lap after he passed George Russell. Just died on him, a bit like George Russell's did. But what a drive. It was all about George Russell with that pole position. But in the race, Kimi shown that actually he's still top dog in Mercedes, and you're going to have to do some to beat this kid. He was brilliant, and it was really nice to see how gracious he was, even with the downer that he'd been in just moments ago. For him to congratulate Lewis Hamilton shows real character, real love, and it was so much maturity in that moment for me, that you think this kid is right there. Mercedes now need to sort themselves out, get this reliability issue fixed, because they can't keep losing points like this. But for Kimi, he can go away with his held up. He wasn't quite on the pace of George over one lap in qualifying. He said himself he overdrove. But in the race, he can just look at that and think, yes, I am the Don in this Mercedes team when it comes to race day. He was brilliant. Just so disappointing with his DNF. And the third point you've got to say is George Russell. Well, I think he's got to be disappointed with his race, hasn't he? He's finished second on the podium, but really just thanks to a Mercedes DNF. He's got to just sort of brush it off and say, well, it goes around, comes around, happened in Canada, potentially cost him a win in Canada. Only a second place for Kimi Antonelli here, but Russell was the man to beat. He was out in front at the start, but then just didn't have the pace at any point in the race. To end of his first stint, Kimi Antonelli was all over the back of him. In the end of the second stint, Kimi Antonelli closed up past him. He wasn't on the pace of the Ferraris, so this dominant pace that Mercedes have shown in a track where it's all about the car on race day, they've lost it to the Ferrari. And George Russell's lost it to his teammate Kimi Antonelli. So a lot of head scratching to go on around there. McLaren and Lando Norris were the third man on the podium, and you've got to give it him. He was almost a silent assassin in this Grand Prix, almost came out of nowhere. But in that second, just after the first stop, he was brilliant. Kept on it, kept the two Mercedes boys honest. And, you know, almost forcing more mistakes from Kimi Antonelli, made sure that Mercedes pushed and drove for every single inch of the circuit. But a brilliant job from Lando Norris. Didn't quite have it in qualifying, didn't think he would have this much pace in the race. So a fantastic job from him. And yeah, that's pretty much it really for me in terms of the race. Red Bulls were not really quite in the race. Max Verstappen does finish fourth, but he was comfortably way back of Lando Norris. Isaac Hadjar had a good drive, good recovery. He must have had the rest of his life to finish back in sixth place. Overtakes galore, bad starts, something that Red Bull need to fix on their side of the garage. Nico Hülkenberg, the biggest disappointment for me, was running in the points. Looked like good points would be on for him in the Audi. Wasn't to be. And it's the two Racing Bulls that sneak in, and the two Alpines, in fact, to finish 7th and 8th for the two Alpines, where it looked horrible for him at the start of the race, horrible for him in qualifying, and the same in race day. So really disappointing from them, but great drives from Alpine and the Racing Bulls. Double points finishes again. One guy I've actually forgot to talk about is actually Charles Leclerc. His teammate won, and what a disappointing race weekend it's been for him. The race was, he got a brilliant start, made up 3 places up into 7th place. And then it looked like he might be in there for a shout with sort of P4 at one stage, because his pace was absolutely phenomenal, especially in the first stint, but then just seemed to drop back off. Got really unlucky. He pit 1 lap before the virtual safety car, which Lewis really benefited from. Charles Leclerc obviously just fell on the wrong side of things for him. It's just not falling for him at the moment in this Ferrari, is it? Just after his new contract, qualifying, he's been crashing out, and in the race, it's not gone well at all. He then fell behind Max Verstappen and then seemed to not have the pace of the Ferrari. And I don't know if that was just a development of the problem that saw the end to his race when he, lost the power steering, and another DNF for Charles Leclerc, back-to-back DNFs after Monaco and then now in Spain. 2 crashes in qualifying. It's just seems like it's just really, really just biting him in the backside, wherein his teammate is having the complete opposite end. Ferrari really need Charles just to be there or thereabouts now, don't they? They're seeing that with one car. They need to have both cars up there if they're going to try and mount some sort of challenge to the Mercedes boys. This was a track all about the car. Ferrari on the side of Lewis have shown that the car is good. Updates, things to change, things to get right, clearly on Charles Leclerc's side as well. And then they've got themselves the opportunity. They've got the 2 tokens to upgrade this car under the duo system. So we could see an improved engine coming for Ferrari. Their upgrades are now working. So despite 2 disappointing race weekends for Charles Leclerc, there's promise. There's no doubt there's a brilliant driver in there. He just needs to scrub this off and just find himself again, because he just seems to have just dropped off it a little bit, and is obviously his teammates taking all the highlights. But yeah, a really, really difficult Spanish Grand Prix for Charles Leclerc. But yeah, that's the story of the Spanish Grand Prix. What a race. Lewis Hamilton with a V for victory. Brilliant drive. There we have it. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. As always, see you on the next one.